Okay. Hello, hello. Hope everyone is okay. There seems to be a little bit of a delay. If you can hear the delay, can you put it in the chat? If you happen to be on the call already, you can just type in, you can clearly hear me, everything's fine, or you hear some type of a delay. I just wanna check to make sure the live chat is working and that I am coming over clearly. So I will go ahead and start and assume that you can hear me. I'm excited about the detox challenge we started today. For those of you who are participating, then you may have already, um, gone into the fasting guideline, which I provided a link for during the last call. And hello, Mazuba. It's good to see you. Good to hear from you. Come join. Can you hear me okay? Can you give me confirmation that I'm coming over clearly? There's a delay on my end. And I want to make sure that you guys are getting all the good information today. We start our fast. Um, so I am Jennifer Lipscomb. This is HerSoulFit. And the purpose of the fasting detox challenge, the 3-day detox challenge is to lose fat, right? First and foremost, that's why we're all here, but also to detoxify, to get rid of all the toxins, the sugar, all of that buildup that we have in our system, in our organs that are affecting our brain health, that are affecting our tissue health, that are affecting how our bodies function optimally. And so the purpose of this fast is not just to lose fat, that is the primary reason, but also to improve our health. That's why it's important for us to start with this fast, particularly now during the holidays, because the holidays is when we, particularly as menopausal women with a sweet tooth, are having high cravings. We're eating a lot of those foods that don't serve us. And this detox will help us to manage that, right? To manage our eating habits and to help us gain control over the food that we're eating. So let me just check. Can you guys hear me loud and clear? Oh, perfect. I'm happy about that. Great. Thank you, Mazuba. Thank you, Kamitha. There is an echo. You're hearing it too. Okay, then let me just check to make sure that I have everything in order. Did the echo go away for you? Let me know. You can just go ahead and put it in the chat, because I want to make sure that I am not ruining the sound or the audio, and everything that I'm speaking is coming over clearly and you can hear with no problem. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to, okay, good, super, Mizuba. Thank you for giving me feedback. One of the things that I wanted to go over today, right? We are starting our fast, and a lot of us started already the fasting cycle yesterday, right? Yesterday was Sunday. And as I explained Friday of last week, before we went into the weekend, the purpose, right, of the pre-fast prep was to create an eating window or a fasting cycle already in the beginning, already in the beginning, so that you can already go into the fast knowing whether or not you are having an appropriate fasting cycle, right? Because When you have your fast from, let's say, starting at 6 p.m. on Sunday, going until 10 a.m. on the next day, if you're doing the intermittent fast, then you know whether or not you can or you need to compress your fasting cycle a little bit more so that your eating window is greater, or whether or not you want to have a smaller eating window and extend your fast. That's for the intermittent fasters. For those who are doing the extended fast, right? You want to participate in the 1, 2, and 3 day fast without eating at all, right? You will not have an eating window at all. You will abstain from eating from food the whole time for the 72 hours. Then the pre-prep or the pre-fast prep was basically to hydrate, right? To have a nutrient dense diet going into the fast, and to make sure that, as everyone should have done, gotten a green light from their health specialist to make sure that their body is able to withstand the fast, whether it's an extended fast or the intermittent fasting, because we don't want to get into the fast and realize that our bodies are not able to manage it, right? Without having consultation with our health specialist, and we discover then later that we have some health conditions, right? Some underlying health conditions that really can, basically debilitate us. We don't want to risk our health. So we want to make sure that we have the green light and that we boost or prepare our bodies for the fast by going through that pre-fast prep. So I'm assuming if you have the fasting guide that you've sort of read through or reviewed a little bit. I did say that I would go through it during the 3 days, and that I do plan to do. We're going to do that a little bit today. But just to get an overall feeling for what is expected and the type of fasts that exist, or at least those that I refer to in the fasting guide, because there are multiple fasting methods. The ones that I mentioned during the kickoff period that were sort of categorized by Dr. Mindy Pelz. She goes over about 6 or 7 different types of fasts. I'm not going to go into detail with those, but I do mention the intermittent fasting, for example, in the fasting guide. And I also go into the modified fasting or the mimicking fasting days, as well as the extended fast in the fasting guide, because I think keeping it simple makes it easier to sort of compartmentalize all the different types of fasts. Also, the intermittent fast is what I thought, or what I recommend for the beginner who is not used to the extended fast, who's not used to fasting in general, because the intermittent fast is actually safer. It's the most flexible, particularly for women who, have eating habits that vary from day to day, or who have busy schedules, either with work or with the family. And the intermittent fasting method is one that maybe balances well or better with your lifestyle activities. So the intermittent fasting is one that I mentioned as being the most beneficial for the menopausal woman because of the reasons I just mentioned. But in addition, I believe for the menopausal woman, it's the most effective because of those reasons. So it's not just the most convenient or the most flexible, but it's the most effective because you're able to keep consistent with the fast more likely than any other fast type where you need a lot of you're having to schedule or monitor your schedule, or you have to do a lot of organization, and it's a little bit more complex and complicated. But the intermittent fasting is more of just a sliding window, which I like to refer to, because you can decide at any given time, just like for this detox fast, whether or not you want to increase your eating window or decrease it, and therefore automatically increase or decrease your fasting cycle, but without doing too much to your daily routine. Okay. So why am I interested in fasting? And why is this even essential for the Black menopausal woman with a sweet tooth? The reason why it's so important for me is because I personally, in my fat loss journey, have benefited so much from it. It was the tool that helped me with fat loss the quickest out of all of the different types of diets or methods that I use. Now, I did explain that I was very active and still active, relatively active, but I did a lot of exercise and I was an aerobics instructor. I jogged basically every day until I had an injury with my knee. And now I'm doing mainly sort of HIIT and walking. Within that HIIT, body strength training, not necessarily with weights, but my exercise routine had to change because of how the effects of the exercising, um, if was impacting basically my weight. Like I didn't see any good results. And so I needed to modify it and I didn't really know the next step or what to do because everything I did in the past was not working. Um, at least not as effectively as it did before. And therefore, I needed a change. And so when I stumbled across the fasting and realized that it was such a powerful tool, then for me, I thought it was really the only answer at first, just for me. Because, like I said, I was embarrassed to mention it because I really thought that women would consider it too restrictive, that it would be too difficult for them to carry out because they possibly, um, yeah, uh, may feel as though they're denying themselves and therefore don't have as much freedom as when they had other diet plans or methods in place. Well, with the fasting guide, as I mentioned in the introduction, for me, the opposite is true. You're not really denying yourself as you do when you're doing a low calorie restricted diet. Instead, you have the opportunity to actually eat more of what you love and the foods that you enjoy and foods that you would not necessarily be able to eat like on a low carb diet. You certainly would not be able to eat a lot of carbs if you were cutting a lot of carbs out. If you were doing a ketogenic diet, then you wouldn't have as many carbs in your diet. But with the intermittent fasting, you're able to incorporate those foods and still have the results or have more results than if you were simply restricting yourself. And you're able to do it in such a way that is more enjoyable. It's more doable, especially as you get better and continue it and understand and determine which sliding window is best for you. So, as menopausal women, as I sort of benefited from intermittent fasting, I realized that the hormonal changes that we go through can impact our eating habits so much that our behavior towards food is impacted heavily. We have these cravings, and it's not necessarily just a mental factor, but it's also a biological factor. If we have any dopamine levels or varying dopamine levels, then this actually can affect our cravings or our desire towards specific foods, those foods that bring us the most pleasure, like sugar. So I knew that hormones and all types of physiological or environmental factors on top of the symptoms that we have from menopause, like night sweats or mood swings, anxiety levels go up, stress, disrupted sleep, All of these types of symptoms that we have, along with these environmental factors and hormonal changes, they will really impact or have a negative influence on our weight management if we're not able to gain more control over our eating habits. And this intermittent fasting or the sliding eating window is a really good way to implement some of the necessary tools that we need, like cutting back on calories. We're able to do that with this tool in place, but without having to restrict the calories from each of our individual meals. So with calorie restriction, when you're dieting and you say, okay, I'm not going to eat too many cookies, or I'm going to eat cookies with low calorie or low sugar in them, or you have less fat, or you cut fat completely out of your diet there, or just carbs in general, you're not even eating complex carbs. This really can impact the functioning of your body, because you need complex carbs, you need fats, essential fats, for your body to function optimally. That's why for me it's not an option, and I believe overall for menopausal women it should not be an option, because we need, for the balancing of our hormones, as many nutrients as possible. Therefore, sliding our eating window, but without changing our diet, is key and the most effective for losing fat. So, menopausal women, as we age, we start to lose estrogen. Estrogen is actually one of the keys. There are other hormones in play. I'm not going to go into that today, but I will just sort of focus on estrogen, because estrogen for us as menopausal women coming into these menopausal phases, we go through perimenopause, we have the menopausal stage, and then postmenopause, where our hormones are constantly in flux up until the postmenopausal stage, when it's pretty much a stable reduction of our estrogen. It plays such a large role in our levels of insulin. And insulin, as you know, or as we've discussed, and I'm sure you've read and have had experiences with yourself, plays a key role with fat loss. As our estrogen goes down, then we become more and more insulin resistant. When we were younger than 40s, like in our 20s and our 30s, our estrogen levels were very, very high. And during that time, we had supple skin, because estrogen is really good with, keeping our skin and our tissues, well and functioning at their best. But as it goes down, there are a lot of things that we start to lose. We lose, our muscle density, we lose our muscle mass, and it also affects insulin. And as our insulin becomes, as we become less and less sensitive, to our insulin, then it becomes harder and harder for us to lose the fat. And during that time, the fat is redistributed in our bodies, and basically sort of settles around in our tummy area. And for Black menopausal women who are at higher risk for insulin resistance, this is so important to know, to identify, to be aware of, and to work against it, right? To do all that we can to sort of reverse the effects of this on our bodies. And the way that we can do this, the quickest, the fastest, the most efficient, is truly through fasting. Intermittent fasting. It does not have to be an extended fast, which I'm participating in right now through these 3 days, but instead intermittent fasting at its best, whichever sliding window you have chosen, which is the the best for you. That is the level at which we want to be operating, right, during our fat loss journey through an eating window and a fasting cycle that is able to tap into our stores and balance our hormones, balance our blood sugar levels, and allow us to be more insulin sensitive and reverse the insulin resistance. And because we as Black women are at such high risk, that's why it's so important for me to help, to support, to cheer on Black women in their fat loss journey, because I know that through this tool, which I would love to help women do, to utilize so they can take advantage of it, not just for fat loss, but for their health. That's why it's so important for me to be involved here, because I know how it's helped me. And that's why I want to help others through this tool. Now, I know that we have a lot of people in the community who are already intermittent fasting, either with success, and they just like the idea of having, support and being in community, having confirmation and reinforcement through videos with content that they're familiar with, or those women who have no experience whatsoever with fasting. So we have a broad range, but it's important regardless to really know the reasons behind why fasting can help before getting into it, even while you're in it, so that you recognize that the importance of it, its role with your body, so that you understand how you actually can work it at its best. Because if you're just fasting for the sake of losing fat and you don't recognize how hormones play a role with that, then you lose sight of how you can adjust your eating habits or adjust your window based on your hormones and benefit from it the most. A lot of women who maybe are intermittent fasting, they are doing it to lose fat for the quickest results. And it is by far, in my opinion, the best tool to get the results that you want the quickest, far better than exercising. Like I said, exercising is maybe 20% of the entire formula, if not less, perhaps. Exercising is great. I would never take that out of the entire formula, but it's important really to see it from a holistic approach, which means that fasting, particularly for menopausal women, should be in the center, should be take on the key role, and exercising and nutrients, the diet that we have, that then should take on a more supportive role in our fasting journey. So that's why it was important for me to start this, and especially during this time of the holidays, when we are surrounded by so much food, so many temptations that can throw us off track. We want to make sure that we are in control over our eating habits. We don't want to be overeating. Fasting helps us to do that the easiest. And therefore, this is a great time to implement it and see if this works for you. So I just want to check. Kamitha Whipple says, oh, that was a great point. It's easier to stay within your restrictions because your eating window is smaller. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You can still eat the foods that you enjoy, be in a reduced eating window, and still lose fat, which is not necessarily the key or the way with these more restrictive diets. Like if you completely leave out carbs or you completely leave out fats, you're leaving out important nutrients that your body needs in order to function properly. So therefore, if you have this sliding window, you can determine which one, as you're going through the fasting cycle, which one is the best for you. I just want to, as we're going through this fasting guide, I want to point out one of the experiments or studies that was done with mice. I believe it was in 2015. And during this time, they wanted to see if they were able to restrict the amount of food for mice to see how it would impact their fat, whether or not they would lose fat or not. There are a number of different studies. There's one that I did a video on having to do with the time of day in which you eat. If you don't eat past a certain time, you can eat all that you want, but you still are able to lose fat because you're not eating past a certain window. That is more having to do with circadian rhythms, and that we might touch upon at some point during these live coaching calls. But the most important study was the one that they did with mice, where they said if we reduce the eating window to 8 to 12 hours, and monitor the mice to see whether or not they're able to lose fat during this time, then we know whether or not having this intermittent fasting or cutting down the window actually does make a difference, whether or not it's relevant for humans, if we're able to limit the amount of time that we're eating, because there's so many people out there, experts, supposed fat loss experts, that say it does not matter when you eat during the day, or does not matter how when you cut off your eating during the day. I'm not sure how they are able to justify to their community that eating at any given time throughout the day is beneficial for you and serves you if you're trying to lose fat, because there are no studies out there that support that. But these studies, the ones that I mentioned in the fasting guide, are in fact legit. And it shows to us that if we are conscientious, we say, we're intentional about our eating window, then we're able to really monitor our calories without even having to think about it. As Camilla mentions, you really can restrict the calories, but without really impacting the food choices that you have. You can continue eating what you're having now and still lose fat just by adjusting your eating window. And that's really important. So that was the first thing. I just wanted to mention the study, that fasting should be done holistically, considering your diet, that it's nutrient dense, that you are in fact exercising, along with making smart choices with the food that you eat. And also that you consider your lifestyle, because stress plays an impact, and you want to make sure that you reduce your stress as much as possible, that you're getting enough sleep. These are themes that we as menopausal women are familiar with, but it's even more important to really apply it, particularly when you're fasting. So I sort of talked about some of the issues that I mentioned are coming from the introduction, why I even was interested in fasting, and how I think it can benefit the menopausal woman, and particularly the Black menopausal woman, because of our high risk of insulin resistance, and knowing that estrogen plays a key role in fat loss, because as it goes down, our insulin resistance goes up, that this is reason enough for us to do the most effective action against our insulin resistance, which would be fasting or intermittent fasting. Okay, so I'm just going to stop right there, and I want to just get a feeling from you all how your fast has started. As I said, yesterday was the pre-fast prep, which meant for some of us, those of us who are doing the intermittent fasting, that you end your eating window at a certain time, and you start your eating window beginning today at a certain time, to kind of get a feel for which cycle is the best for you, whether or not you feel as though you need to compress your eating window more or if you can extend it, um, because you want to know how your body responds to the fasting. So I want to get a feeling from you all how you started. You can just drop some comments. Did you create an eating window yesterday during the pre-fast prep? Or did you sort of go in cold turkey, which is also okay, and just stop sort of eating today, and you're going to begin your eating window, then later today, and start from there your cycle for the next day. However, you decided to implement it. The main thing is just over the course of these 3 days to get a feeling for how it works for you, whether it serves you, what the benefits are, um, if you're able to handle it. It could be that you get maybe headaches or some symptoms that you're not comfortable with, that you feel are too distressful to continue on. So you can go ahead and drop in the chat whether or not you have had any challenges yet, with intermittent fasting as we start this detox fasting challenge today, or not. Maybe you haven't had any struggles, to this point. Maybe you started already with hydrating and you feel already full of energy because you're still, basically filled with the calories that you had from the previous day. It takes a while before our body kicks into, tapping into those fat stores, particularly if we have, put on a lot of sugar over the years. Then our sugar stores are filled, and our liver and our fat cells are, impacted, and therefore it might take a while before our body switches over metabolically to those other fuel sources, the fat cells that break down, and that we start using the ketones for fuel. That may not happen as quickly. And so, yeah, we vary then with the effects that we might have from fasting. From person to person, it's really an individual experience. And that's why it's even more important for us to come together and share so that we can learn from one another and get an idea of, what benefits each of us have been getting, or challenges, as I said, and how we can sort of solve them together. And of course, I can provide any answers to any questions you may be having, or I'd like to think I can help as much as possible. So Kamitha says, I've been intermittent fasting for about a month and really like it. That's great that you have already started the journey, that you've already benefited from, the process, and you've already had experience with it. So you maybe have more of an idea of whether or not it's something for you that you'd like to continue. Kamitha says, for the next 3 days, I'll do intermittent fasting for 16 hours, longer than she's used to, eating from 12 noon until 8 p.m. That's great. This cycle that you have was the typical cycle that I actually had. When I first started, I stopped eating breakfast, and I postponed my lunchtime, and it really did vary, which is why I refer to it as a sliding window, because it's not necessarily, that your eating window begins exactly at 12. It could be that you're not hungry and you decide to extend your fast until maybe 1 or 2 or 3, depending on how you're feeling on that day. But this cycle that you have was one that I'm pretty familiar with. That's the one that I had for a long period of time, in the beginning, when I first started applying the intermittent fasting method. And it was the easiest for me. I automatically got really, really great results. And it was the easiest because it fit the best with my working cycle, with my social cycle, with starting my day and exercising and then not having to think about food at all until the afternoon. And then, working my regular 9 to 5 that I had, and then going into, my eating window with a lot of hunger, with a lot of, cravings and all of this. But I liked that. I think it's really good for us to learn our hunger signals. And what better way to do that than with intermittent fasting when you are, controlling your eating habits through the eating window, cutting off the time that you're eating and being able to sort of get familiar with your body's internal system. And it's just the best way to really help and trigger. So, is there anyone else that may have questions about the fasting that you have begun? Is anyone right now doing the extended fast? um, that would be the fast of 24 hours or more, 48 hours, 72 hours, or is everyone pretty much doing the intermittent fasting? Both are fabulous, are great, are phenomenal for, fat loss, and for the menopausal woman. The extended fast is not necessarily fast. Like I said, for the beginner, you will want to have already started fasting. This may not, should not possibly be the first time that you're doing the extended fast, because you will want to have had a green light from your health specialist. And you also want to have preparation going into it, preparing yourself physically. And this might not have been enough time for this detox challenge for you to do that. But both of these methods are very helpful for the menopausal woman. So either way is fine. And I'm interested for both types of fast to hear from you, whether or not you're benefiting from it, whether or not it's something that you believe that you'll be able to continue to do, and how, if at all, you have had any, really good results from this. Like I said, it's a really effective way, and the results do come pretty quickly. But over this 3-day period for intermittent fasting, you may not see significant results in actual fat loss, but you will see it in maybe your hunger signals, being able to manage them better, being more aware of, whether or not you can go over that period of time without having food. Those are the types of things that you'll become more familiar with as the intermittent fasting during this detox. And also just to understand, what the challenges are and how to go about dealing with them. Mazuba says, I started yesterday with a 16-hour window, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So you already started yesterday before the fast. Is this a fasting cycle or an eating? It's the eating window you're talking about, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Okay. And so you'll be doing basically an 8-hour window of eating and 16-hour fast. So similar to Kamitha, but just a different fit or food intake timeline. This is also in the fasting guideline, the how to create an eating window and what the food intake timeline is. And I'm assuming that all of those who are participating did in fact download the fasting guide. If you haven't, it's not too late. You can just simply go in the description notes under this video. It's already drafted there before it's even officially uploaded, this video, before it's final. And you can click on the link and you can gain access to the fasting guide. That's actually very, very beneficial for you, because you will then on a weekly basis receive tips and strategies and possibly recipes from my YouTube channel or from my podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram, and I will provide continued support during this time, of course, this 3-day fast, but also ongoing during your fat loss journey. So that's something that you would benefit from. I just want to say, as I sort of bring the call to an end, um, the benefits of fasting, like I mentioned before, are not just having to do with the fat loss. For us as menopausal women, of course, that's one of the most important. It should, it doesn't override the health. The health benefits are, of course, very significant and important for us. But the fat loss is the reason why we're all in this community, because, it's something that, we're all striving for. It's something that we are struggling with, and that we've had problems with for a number of years, something that we possibly, never had to deal with before in the past, because the methods that we had, like exercising and, what have you, was enough. It was effective, and we didn't have the problems that we're having now as menopausal women. So fat loss is key and very important. But underlying that, like I said, as the estrogen goes down and the fat redistributes and it settles in the midsection, it's not just what you see from the outside that's important about our fat loss journey, but it's also the fat around our visceral, like the visceral fat around our organs. That's very important, because that is what actually is a precursor in a lot of cases for chronic diseases. And so by losing fat, both in our midsection, but also the visceral fat, we're able to improve our health. And so fat loss from the belly is not just about appearance, but it's also about internal care, like really getting our health in order as menopausal women. Mazuba says she started yesterday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. with plant-based foods. Awesome. I have been drinking plenty of water, as it is very hot in my neck of the woods. Mazuba, where are you located? Maybe you can jot that down if you wish in the chat. I'd like to know exactly where you're tuning in from. And any of the other participants, if you wish, you want to kind of put in the chat where you're coming in from. Are you coming mainly from the US? That's where a lot of the women are coming from in this community. Are any of you possibly in Europe, or maybe even coming from other continents, maybe from Africa, or what have you? Wherever you're coming from, if you wish, put in the chat where your neck of the woods is, and I'd like to definitely welcome you here to this community, wherever you're coming from. And so happy that we have such a broad group of women here coming from all over. So your fast is being supported by your plant-based diet right now, and also from the hydration, which is key. I mentioned that yesterday, that no matter which fasting method we're participating in, whether it's the intermittent fasting or it's the extended fasting, hydration is very important. In fact, let me just take a sip right now. Because it helps actually with the ketosis process. And that, as you know, is the burning of fat, where there is the byproduct of the ketones. And so it's important that we support that with water. And if we don't hydrate enough, then of course we're going to have a deficiency in our electrolytes. And it's important that we do have our electrolytes in balance, because we will otherwise we will not benefit from having a deficiency in our electrolytes. It's important that we maintain that. You can do that, maintain your electrolytes, by supplementing either, and also in consultation with your health specialist. So that would mean any, magnesium, and it doesn't have to be anything other than maybe, supplement through one of those juice packets that they have, or it wouldn't be, in this case, a juice packet for the extended faster, but for the intermittent faster, when you're eating anyway and during your window, if you feel like your electrolytes are off balance, then you can, in consultation with your health specialist, supplement with that. For those where it's most or more likely that the electrolytes will be off balance for the extended fasters, then you will not be having calories, to balance out your electrolytes, but instead, supplements like in the form of tablets. But again, check first with your healthcare specialist before you're taking any supplements, because it may not be the right thing for you and is definitely not necessarily recommended by me. I'm not a medical expert. It's just what is recommended in general when one is fasting, to make sure that the electrolytes are managed. So I'm sure you're going to make sure that you're doing the right thing, that you're consuming those supplements that are most helpful for you if necessary. But again, in consultation with your healthcare specialist. But I wanted to just let you know, if you are doing extended fasting and you are having difficulty with your electrolytes, this, what I'm going to tell you now, is a sign, or it gives you an idea of what that might mean, what kind of experiences you have. You will not necessarily have anything that is, detrimental to. I mean, any kind of change in electrolytes can be detrimental to your health. It may not be something that causes distress, where you need emergency help, but it's still something to monitor and be aware of, because this can affect your overall health. Because electrolytes are important for nerve function, for muscle function, for your heart, and for overall tissue function. And so, because electrolytes are important for these types of physiological, processes, if you don't have your electrolytes in order, then you'll experience things like dizziness. You may have fatigue, or you might feel faint. You could also have irregularity in your heart. So it's important to have this in mind and to monitor this. And that's why I say, for those extended fasters, if in fact you're feeling any physiological distress, to check with your healthcare specialist and to make sure that you supplement if needed, and again, in consultation with your healthcare specialist. Um, so as you jot down any other questions you may have, I think we have just a few more minutes before I bring the call to an end. I'm going to just I'm just going to see if there's anything else in the fasting guide that I may want to bring up and address before we close the call. Let's see here. Mazuba says she wanted to go longer than the 5 days. She wanted to go longer, than the 3 days. Okay. You mean in terms of the intermittent fasting? Because I believe that's what you're doing, exactly, because you have an eating window. Absolutely. And that's what ultimately is the goal for all of the participants of the Detox Challenge, to continue on with the fasting cycle, the intermittent fasting cycle, not the extended fast. And the reason why is because, like I said, it's key to losing fat the quickest and the easiest for the menopausal woman. And so it's something that you will want to consider implementing or integrating in your lifestyle for your fat loss journey. That would mean not, sort of applying it today and then forgetting about it tomorrow, but literally trying to create a sliding eating window. That's why the sliding eating window term is important, because it doesn't mean having a rigid eating window that you will sort of live with throughout your fat loss journey, but it's something that will adjust or need to be adjusted according to your lifestyle, because our lives change with activities, with events, with having kids or grandkids, maybe job changes. Maybe you, God forbid, have a physical disease or accident, and you have to adjust your life around that. So um, be flexible and open for the sliding eating window. Use this time, the 3-day detox challenge, to consider which sliding eating window is the best for you by first just checking to make sure that you're able to withstand or to deal with that time period, that fasting cycle, without any food. Is it something that you feel you're able to, or you're capable of um, handling, or is it too much for you? Is having a fasting cycle of 16 hours too much, or do you feel as though it's something that you want to extend or to reduce? This is the time for you to figure that out as a kickstart for your fasting lifestyle. And that's why this community is so important, and this live coaching call is so important, because you can use this, we all can use this as an opportunity to exchange with one another and discuss which methods or tips or strategies you're using to overcome any challenges you have, or what benefits are you getting from it, which will help others, inspire others to continue on when they're feeling maybe overwhelmed by the fasting cycle, or overwhelmed by being hungry. So this is maybe not as difficult doing the intermittent fasting, because you can be flexible about your eating window. If at any time you're feeling hungry and you think, I was not able to manage that eating window or that fasting cycle, I need to cut it short because I need to start eating now, you can do that. And that's not necessarily the case if you're doing the extended fast. Of course, during the extended fast, if you realize that, you are in over your head and you would rather eat, you can't not carry on, you don't feel as though you can continue through with the extended fast, at any given time, of course, through your own judgment, you can stop the fast and you can begin to eat. But if you're able to, and you've committed to it, and you really want to see it through, then refer to the fasting guide, and look for those tips that you can use, that you can implement in order to help you overcome that period where you're really hungry and you think you're not able to see it to the end. Um, Okay, let's see here. Kamitha says to Mizuba, me too. I'm hoping this is the kickstart of a new nutritious lifestyle. Absolutely. I can vouch for myself that it is a great tool and a great way of managing my eating habits. And I see this as an ongoing lifestyle, something that I believe I will continue to do because I just reap so many benefits from it. And these extended fasts that I am participating in during this 3-day detox is not something you do on a regular basis. It's not something you're doing like, I mean, not all women. There may be women in the community who do, in fact, implement extended fasts much more often than, let's say, I do. For me, I would say this year, this is maybe the second one that I've done. I may have done a third one, but definitely this is the second one I've done. So it's not something I'm doing all the time. And it's, for me, the most important to do it when, in fact, I feel as though I need to detox. I've, eaten too much sugar or too many chemicals, or, too many products that I know are impacting my health and my eating habits, my metabolic system. And so this is the fastest way to address that. And the last thing before I close, Mazuba says, I commit that it has been a struggle and willing to give it a try. I applaud you both, and I really support you and root you on during this journey. I will be here every day. I hope to see you back here in the chat, sharing your experiences. I'll be rooting you on. And Mazuba says she's in Johannesburg, South Africa. Welcome to the community. That's really great. Maybe you can also share with us at some other point experiences that you've had there in South Africa with your eating habits, what things there that have maybe helped you or maybe made it, maybe a little challenging for your eating habits. Yeah, that would be interesting to get more information from you and learn more about your journey being there, particularly in South Africa. So with that, I'm going to now bring the call to a close. We're just under an hour. Unless you don't have any more questions, I'm going to end the call. And tomorrow we will continue on with the fasting guide. And I'll have particular questions that I will ask you again, specifically about your physical state, how you're doing, if you've noticed any benefits, and if there are any challenges that you want to share with the group that I can perhaps help you with. So thank you so much for your participation today in today's call, and for being engaged in the chat and for sharing a little bit about your experiences. I really appreciate that and love to hear from you. And I'm so humbled that you took the time to participate and join me in this call. I wish you all the best for your fast for tomorrow, the next day, and we'll see you again in the evening during our live coaching call. Take care.